obviously, major breaking news that occurred during the course of today's program. I would guess most of you have probably heard it, but if you have not, Queen Elizabeth dying today at the age of 96 years old. Prince Charles will ascend to the throne, become King Charles. He is in his 70s, will probably not be a very long reign compared to the reign, certainly, of Queen Elizabeth, who was the Queen of England for just shy of 70 years. She came into the queenship at a very young age, coming off of World War II, where she won the hearts and minds of her countrymen as a part of maybe the greatest moment in the history of England. I mean, you could make that argument. Certainly Churchill did in standing up to Nazi Germany and leading the charge for freedom, democracy around the world when everybody else in Europe was crumbling in the face of Hitler and his invasions all over that continent. So, Buck, there is going to be a great outpouring of memory related to the Queen. What I would say is she may be the last figure of her sort of majestic aura that almost everyone loves. I mean, her approval rating, if you think now we live in an American life where it's almost impossible for anybody to hardly get over 50% approval, the Queen is like 98% beloved in England. And I wonder, with Prince Charles ascending, what that's going to mean to the royal family, how long he will be there. If you missed earlier in the program, I love the royal family. I could do 3 hours on it. You're just blown away.
Did you ever see in the show Parks and Rec?
Yeah.
Where there's now,
you're stunned that I care so much about the royal family.
I am flabbergasted. Yes.
You think the audience is as well? What percentage of our audience do you think cares a great deal about the royal family?
I remember there was this whole, it was a comedy concept in the show Parks and Rec where a character who some people have actually told me that I look like. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I get that occasionally. Where the whole town, sort of the town's, the one thing that everyone in the town loves is this tiny horse, you know? And he's the only person that is like, I don't get it. And he sort of sits there. I'm not, look, a woman just passed. She was a huge piece of history and the majesty and all this other stuff. The general fascination with the royal family, I just don't get it. I don't know. I'm trying to understand I'm not a Brit, right? If I were British, maybe it'd be very different for me. I'm just trying to get there. That's all. I'm not a. I am just a little. I'm the outpouring global. I mean, the whole world is. This is the biggest news story in the world by far right now, in terms of media coverage and everything else. And I'm sort of sitting here like, okay. I mean, obviously condolences to her family, and she was apparently a very lovely woman and meant a lot to a lot of people. But people in, like the Czech Republic, their main news story today is going to be the passing of Queen Elizabeth. I just think it's, I don't know. I'm trying to get there, Clay. I'm flabbergasted. That's all. I admit that this may be something that I'm missing. And again, I'm not criticizing the royal family or anything else. I'm just trying to understand why this has the impact that it does on people. I don't get it.
I think there is a massive nostalgia factor where when someone has been there for decades doing what I think is one of the best jobs of.
But what's the job?
Well, the job is to basically, it's interesting because you have, unlike the United States where everything kind of gets rolled into one office, you have the ceremonial responsibilities of the head of state, the prime minister of the division.
I mean, I know, it's like showing up with the crown on and tea time and stuff. I mean, I get it.
It is for 70 years to represent. I mean, think about how few people we have in America today who can represent anything for more than like a year without being a disaster, right? Like even something that doesn't even matter. which is like sports.
Look, I get it. She is Dolly Parton level popular, meaning everyone. What?
Oh no!
What was that bad? Everyone loves Dolly Parton. I thought. Is that?
I can just see now. Yesterday, I got called a right-wing extremist. You comparing Queen Elizabeth to Dolly Parton. I can just see it going. I can just see it echoing around the world.
Mean that everyone loves her.
We're not going to be able to get into the radio station tomorrow.
Gosh.
You're never going to be able to go to England for the rest of your life. I love Dolly Parton.
Well, I don't understand.
She's not that similar to Dolly Parton.
I just meant in terms of her approval rating. Everyone loves. Okay, all right. I don't know.
I'm just picturing.
I told you
the next time you try to land in England.
And my analysis of the royal family is not something that I would put forward as one of my.
They have MI6 waiting to escort you off the plane based on your Dolly Parton analogy there, which is really, really funny.
I guess
from the historical perspective, if nothing else, one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to do. I talked about getting to go to Normandy and tour the beaches. The coolest thing I've ever done in England. Have you been there? The Churchill War Rooms?
I've spent very little time in England, honestly. I've only been there for a few days.
One of the greatest things, if you are a history person. So for me, to answer your question about Queen Elizabeth, she is living history in that, to me, she is inextricably intertwined with that era of Churchill, of the Nazi bombing raids.
I've read 6 biographies of Winston Churchill.
Yes.
So I know a lot about
You
Churchill.
would love the Churchill War Rooms.
And one thing that I always found so interesting about this is that there were times when the bombing raids were coming and they knew where they were coming because they had broken the code, but they couldn't tell necessarily the place where the bombing raid was coming because they were worried about letting people know the code had been broken. So there's a lot that went on, a lot of very difficult decision-making that went on during those periods. In fact, sometimes Churchill even went out of the bunker when he knew that the Nazi planes were heading elsewhere for the purposes of taking a photograph to make it seem as though, for the symbolism, I should say, of standing up against the Nazi war machine, which finest hour, obviously, the movie, finest hour, the concept, the stiff upper lip, and the. We could talk World War II Churchill all day. I mean, the royal. I mean, again, are we allowed to talk about the royal family right now? I'm just trying to express condolences, and
I think you're done. I don't think I was going to say you would love the Churchill War Rooms. I think that the guards, Buckingham Palace guards, when you land in England, you and Carrie, you're going to get married. You're going to be like, hey, we should go to London, and they're going to immediately put you in chains and take you to a dungeon because you just compared Queen Elizabeth to
that is not true. I said the popularity level when you look at polling, Queen Elizabeth was a very popular figure. I admit. I mean, we're talking about World War II. Anyway, I don't think it's the time the royal family in World War II, if you go back, if you remember, even they dealt with this in the King's Speech.
Yep.
There were some not so great moment, not involving Queen Elizabeth, but the royal family more broadly. Anyway,
you are falling apart on the Queen Elizabeth. We can talk every day for 3 hours about abortion, immigration, crime.
I just don't look
inflation, and you just nail it. Queen Elizabeth comes up, and you're falling apart.
Condolences and a lovely woman, and I wish the British, the British Isles and everything, their mourning period here and all that. I don't know. I'm just sort of. The royal family thing, I don't really understand the fascination.
I'm obsessed with the royal family. This story, like to give you an example, I was supposed to be on Fox and Friends Saturday morning from down here in Austin for the Alabama-Texas game. They were going to be on location. Fox and Friends, Fox News, canceled being on location because I think they're going to go all in on coverage surrounding the Queen's death. And certainly a big part of this is going to be, and I believe I'm correct in this, and I'm not an expert, we're going to have Steve Hilton, who is British, does a great show on Fox News on tomorrow to contextualize all this. But I think Westminster Abbey will have the official coronation. Charles is king now, as he now would ascend to the throne. But I believe they will have a grand celebration of sorts leading to the official crowning. We haven't seen this in 70 years in Westminster Abbey, which is another place you should visit. Churchill War Rooms and Westminster Abbey, if you are still allowed in the country, which, frankly, based on the last 4 minutes, I'm not sure whether that's going to happen or not.
We'll do a little more analysis of perhaps the history of the royal family in the last, well,
my mom just texted me, Buck, can't quit watching coverage of the Queen. She turned us off.
People love this story. I get it. I understand. I'm in the minority here of people that are just like, I don't understand why there are adults who are crying all over the world right now who have never met the woman, but I appreciate that it is important to a lot of people. I'm going to go do some reading on the Queen and all the rest of it.
I'm glad we're not in the same car because I think MI6 might take you out when we leave studio today.